Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Google for Business podcast. I'm Martin Sherrington, and I've got a cracking, what do you call these, event lined up? I think so. Interview is what we'll call it. But you're going to enjoy it very much indeed. Ready? Here we go. Myself and John Hall in this session will take you through a load of info around the importance of reviews and also how you can improve your customer service and help people display that in search. After all, we do dig reviews, and the space is going to grow like crazy over the next few years. Hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome. I'm chatting today with John Hall from Grey.us. Welcome, John.
Hello, Martin.
And what we're going to be talking about? Reviews! You know we're going to be talking about reviews. So John is an expert in the reviews space. He's got a wonderful platform system that we've used as well and that we're using in Plus Your Business. And let's start with, what is going on with reviews? Do you think that this is a rising tide that people need to pay attention to? Loaded question, because you know I
Well, I do, and I hope it is, because it's what our business is. But I think it's been kind of waiting in the wings for a long time, in the sense that historically we needed to look to experts to give us their opinions from on high to convince us a restaurant was good or not good, or a product was good or not good, and in the internet age over the last 20 years, we've seen consumers increasingly looking to other consumers and having other consumers and their opinions to look to make decisions about what's worthy of spending our time and money on. And so I on the one hand, I just see that trend continuing and expanding into industries where maybe it isn't so mainstream or habitual for us today. So it's, you would never place a reservation at a hotel without checking a hotel's reviews today. At least 99% of people. But it's not necessarily the same for folks who are choosing a doctor or specialist. A lot of people look at reviews. Some don't. For some businesses, there just aren't review sites and channels today to find customer opinions. So I see an expansion into new industries. But there's also a threat. From the standpoint that reviews are something that marketers, white hat and black hat alike, look to today as a source of influence, and there's no question that fraud is a problem when it comes to online customer reviews, and so that's a threat that is kind of looming out there that could affect how much trust consumers have in reviews going forward.
Yeah, and I think that you're talking now in sort of broad spectrum about review sites. It could be Yelp, it could be TripAdvisor. Where do you think that things are at with the Google scape, as we can see it, with the review scape that is there in search? I mean, you've watched this over the past few years. Is it? I mean, I am biased, and I say I can see it picking up, and I can see that. What is your experience? Because you're watching thousands of sites potentially, and the data that's coming from that.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, no doubt that Google and specifically review content that's native to Google, whether they're Google Plus reviews or whether they're going to be called Google My Business reviews or whatever they're called. I
don't think any of us know yet. We just Google reviews have just gone.
Google reviews.
Yeah, for local, we can't say local. We say Google My Business pages. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I see them as probably the most important. Across the board, when you just all things being equal, Google reviews are probably the most important for businesses to look at today, from the standpoint of you got to think about reviews as really providing sort of two prongs, and when you think of them as, I think of them as marketing assets, but from the consumer's perspective, they're information assets to help them make a choice. But as marketing assets, you got to think of them as fulfilling two functions. One is providing visibility for the business. And you can't really talk about visibility these days without talking about search. And so a business's Google My Business page plus its reviews attached to that page are going to be top in terms of search results for that business and for anywhere that business is going to appear in organic results for various keywords and all of that. And so they're very important from a visibility standpoint. And then the two punch of the 1-2 punch that reviews give you is really in terms of is really in influence. And so going forward from what I said earlier about reviews in general, they are trusted today. So consumers trust reviews, and therefore reviews are very influential in getting consumers to move from evaluating a business to actually making a call to that business. And so reviews deliver that second punch that's going to convert the prospect into a customer, but they have to trust the source of those reviews. Yeah. And so I think people trust Google to vet the information that they publish, the information that they put in front of people who search via Google.com. And so I think Google delivers both of those, where some of the other review sites matter in their industry. So we cover a lot of territory with our product. We think the industry specific review sites definitely matter, because you think their audiences are highly qualified to begin with, and so those certainly matter.
And you mean like it's sort of insurance or maybe some medical ones or things like that, as opposed to the general like Yelp and TripAdvisor and other things. Yeah. So you're talking, when you say industry specific, you're talking a niche review site that you wouldn't necessarily even know about, would you? Unless you're sort of in that space.
Yeah, so an example I like to use is Zillow, which I know is big for real estate in the States. I don't know how big it is internationally, but it's essentially a site that pulls together property listings and real estate data, but alongside all of that information, where Zillow's audience is millions of prospective home buyers and home sellers looking at this kind of this real estate data, and alongside that you find business listings for real estate agents, for mortgage brokers, and attached to those listings are reviews, just like any other kind of review site. And so you think about how the business owner exists in that ecosystem, right? It's different from kind of just a generic search someone might do for a real estate agent. They're appearing there alongside information that consumers are consuming, because that audience is already interested in buying or selling a home, and so they're going to need those services. So it's different from search, but it's sort of the same phenomenon of reviews driving both visibility and influence within an audience of prospects for your business.
Yeah. So how can what are the best ways for people to be getting reviews? Because we know it's a challenge for businesses.
It is hard, but there's one thing that we have to constantly a principle we have to constantly go back to, because we do provide a review acquisition solution, but we always have to go back to the kind of ground floor of saying, at the end of the day, it's the business has to do the heavy lifting of providing a recommendable product or service in the first place, right? that's kind of like the floor that you need to be able to then go back out to those customers via various channels and tactics that we facilitate and others facilitate to ask, remind, and guide customers through the review, through the writer review process. And so, but the heavy lifting comes from both providing a recommendable product or service, having relationships with your customers such that they are more motivated, even just slightly more motivated than they might otherwise be, to go and do this either for you as a business that served them well, they want to reciprocate, or because you provide something that is unique or important or great enough that they want to share it with others. So that these are kind of like the motivations that we try to tap into to get customers to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so important that people don't incentivize. That when you say it's like that they're motivated to do it, and I always use the example, you can't say, leave me a review and I'll give you a muffin or latte or whatever. You can't. But the motivated is that actually that they're fans of the business. They want to tell the world how great this business is. They want to spread the word, and that's something which is I think it's a cultural thing. And I look at what Google are doing now with the local guides programs, and I know Yelp have done it with the levels that people have got.
Right.
And I think that that's part of it, is that it's a culture of helping other people make good decisions. And this is the information that helps them. And you can see it with Amazon reviews and things like this. So I think that that's one of the things that's shaping, and I'm watching this obviously in the Google ecosystem, and I do think it's a cultural thing. It's like, you're there to help. You're there to help
right.
future people. Now, that's an interesting thing, because then we come to the principle you were saying earlier about the fake reviews side of it, or people, being slightly more nefarious with these things. And that just needs to be weeded out. And one of the things that we can say over the last however many years is that people's Google accounts, as soon as you see somebody's face, or they're from within your circle of people, then it does increase trust. Because you know them,
right.
or they've been around, or they've left 100 reviews. That's different to somebody opening up an account, leaving a review, and so on. So right. I think that one of the things that for businesses listening, what you said, it's about customer service. It's about doing a good job. That's the starting point. But in order to get them to leave reviews, the system and systems that are out there, but the system that you've got, do you just want to explain the way? Because we're using it, so when we have added bits on and training packages and whatever and we sell. But what does it do? Do you want to explain the different aspects to help people to get more reviews?
Yeah, so key to running a what we call a review campaign is to have a process in place. The name we've given to that process is, or that thing is, the review funnel, right? And so it is what it sounds like. It's a single destination to drive every customer to, after every transaction, to activate them to write a review. And now, so how do you, what does that actually look like? So, well, first of all, you've got to get the customer into the funnel in the first place. And we have a bunch of different tools for this, but a common one to use is an email, and not just an email, but an email drip that's going to ask them to write a review right away after their experience, and then if we don't hear from them, follow up a few days later, and if we don't hear from them, follow up a few days after that, kind of increasing the urgency, but making sure you're hitting them a few times, and hopefully within that, hitting them at a time that is convenient for them to complete the process, and you're driving them into a funnel, right? So a pure expression of the funnel is a landing page, something that most of our users use. That's going to do a number of things. So one is to segment that customer based on their level of happiness, right? If they're an unhappy customer and you're proactively reaching out to them for feedback, you don't necessarily want to just drive them on to leave their feedback on Google+. You want, as a business owner, to have a second chance with that customer.
And that's a filter, really, isn't it? That's just putting like something in place, like a little firewall, which allows them to bounce back, and you go, okay, we need to deal with this before the review. Let's make them happy.
Right. And I mean, I don't love the term filter, but because what I think this essentially is good customer service, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
any it's not just, let's,
Don't let the bad ones through. No, but what
it,
you're saying is that you need to know. You just got to get the feedback, isn't it? And it's just that which is the best way to get the feedback. Well, you want that to be an internal thing.
Right. Exactly. And when you're a business owner and you're trying to get more reviews, right? It makes sense to be very proactive in reaching out to customers. And what we don't want is to is the business owner to feel they have to be very selective in who they're asking for feedback. The idea is make it part of every customer's life cycle. Ask every customer for feedback, but have this mechanism in place to make sure, because you're proactively reaching out to all customers, this is giving you sort of a two-prong attack here. On the one hand, you're asking and reminding and activating those happy customers to share a review on one of those public channels where it really it not just helps your business, but it helps other people who would be interested in your business or your product. But then the other prong is, you're proactively reaching out to those customers who may have had, a less than thrilling experience, and giving them a channel to communicate with you that's immediate and that's other than, letting them kind of, fester out there until they feel they have nowhere to go but to blast you on Google or Yelp or some other site.
And this is it's customer service. This is the way to think about it, isn't it? The reviews are really an evidence point of the customer experience, and you just what you're trying to do is guide to get more sort of feedback. It's the best way of saying it. It is feedback, and these channels then become the expression, hopefully, of the more positive stuff when the time comes. Which is good. So, that's one way. We've got the electronic way. They can click a link in an email, go through to a landing page. When I did my little 3-month walkabout in south of San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and the bars, the restaurants, the designers, everybody, the biggest thing is not asking. That's the reason people aren't getting reviews. And one of the things is a cultural thing is that Yelp, you're not meant to ask.
Right.
That's the thing. So Google and TripAdvisor don't seem to mind. Never incentivize, but you can ask. So QR codes, and I know that you're keen on this approach, and even though it's almost like old-fashioned, QR codes plus a URL plus NFC tags. Moo now are doing NFC-enabled business cards. And nice. When we get to beacons, it's all going to be the same. All that does, all of those methods are just ways of people being able to get to that landing type page on a mobile or on a desktop. But we're talking mobile a lot of the time when people are out in the field. So do you see that people are using those? I mean, I'm finding that is working, but on your larger sample size, are people using mobiles to review? Are people using those methods?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, unfortunately, one of the things that we should have done but didn't from the get-go was have something in place to measure QR usage per se. So we don't actually measure that, although we do know anecdotally that approach gets some usage. But it does kind of depend on we work with so many different types of businesses that serve so many different demographics. Some of our customer base just opts to not try to they'll promote they'll use some but not all of these channels, and they'll leave out the QR code or other thing. What's interesting is that some of the most and this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about this being about customer service, but also about the relationship that the business has with its customers. Some of our most effective campaigns have been done where the ask for the review came, face to face or with a handwritten note, right? That kind of thing, that kind of personal, personal ask can get a lot of traction. because at the end of the day, what motivates the customer to complete is going to be, those two things we talked about earlier. Either a sense of reciprocity towards the business that served them well, or a sense that that cultural thing that you talked about, that they really want to share and help others discover this great thing that they experienced.
Yeah, and I think there's another aspect of the first part about the business. It's actually about the person that served you. And,
Yes.
and it's really personal, and I think that's one thing that I'm seeing is that when I'll give an example. So I was in David's Tea in Burlingame, and so David's Tea, I think it's got about 160 locations around the country now. They had an IPO earlier this year, and one of the staff members and the manager there at the time, he may still be there, they said that they use the reviews, Yelp, Google, etc., in their meetings for feedback on what was, how have we done this week, what's going on. And I went, this is interesting. So it's not only about more people choosing, because in a way for them, they're a tea shop, they're on the high street, they've got footfall, they're going to get people through. But they're using this as a way of assessing really internal performance. Or, if you've got a bad review, they can talk it through and say, no, I think that seems totally, that's an unreasonable response to that person. I watched the interaction, etc. But the thing is, these third-party sites, it isn't just about the business, it's about how these people in the business are actually then being assessed. And I think that this is all part of a movement really around the transparency and about the communication. And I do think that the platforms that are shaping, well really, do it this way, I do think that the platforms that people are leaving the reviews on depends on the culture as to what happens next. Do you know what I mean? Because in a way, some of the platforms have got into, can I leave a funny review? As opposed to, can I serve? Or at least it feels that way sometimes.
Right.
And I just think that I think we're early days with it, but different platforms have got a different feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you look at Yelp as an example, and you talked a bit about some of Yelp's caginess around how business owners talk about reviews or ask for reviews or don't. But if you look at reviews on Yelp and see how they're kind of evaluated by the audience that they're written for. You can click to say a review is funny, helpful, or cool, right? And those are three very different things.
Yeah. Yeah, and reinforcing, in order to get that click really on your profile. It's interesting, isn't it? How that we don't have that on Google.
Right.
And I think that it does mean that there's a difference of potential psychology when you leave the review. I think that, I'm going to pop out this evening, and there's a place up the road here. I'm going to say the name. It's called the Limehouse in Clevedon. I'm just outside of Bristol. And I looked online, where were they? And I looked that they haven't claimed their Google Plus page, their Google My Business page. I went, wow. And they've got no reviews. And I just went, this territory, people don't understand. It's going to happen. People are going to go, and you're going to have to claim your listing, and you are going to start getting reviews, and then you want to reply to people, then you want to build relationships with them, then you want to make them your fans, your local fans, because essentially they're telling the world that they like you, if it's a good review. And I think this is why it ties in. Create good customer service, have good systems that allow you to have the conversation in the appropriate fashion, that as long as the platform's okay, in other words, you're not meant to ask on Yelp, but everyone else seems to be all right with that. And make it easy for people to leave reviews and make it part in the fabric of your business. And there's an opportunity with Google to shape the culture of it being a really useful service for people to use.
Sure, yeah, and I think that we come across that point quite a bit about from business owners, from marketers who look at smaller markets, like it sounds like where you are, where it's just not, it just hasn't penetrated yet. These businesses are listed on Google Plus and Yelp and other review sites that aggregate this this listings data, but they have 0 or 1 review. It's just there's not a lot of activity there, and so they'll say, well, reviews just aren't important in my market or in my industry. And I think you're right that maybe today they don't. There's not the urgency of being competitive and building that asset today because your competitors don't have it and it's not well used in your market or by consumers in your market. But the trend is clearly in that direction, and so for folks in that market, I mean, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to get started early and to kind of start, because it takes time. It's not something that you do overnight if you do it right. So
one of the other things that I found when I was out and about and doing the research is that people really dislike, or the businesses hates it really, when they get that 1-star review, which kind of happens. And it seems the only way to really protect against that is to build up a war chest and to build up, think in terms of hundreds of reviews, not 1s and 2s and 10s. Because that way, that if you've got 100 5 stars and you've got it as part of your business and you've got your whole process set, if you happen to get that 1 star, that unfortunate time that a person was a bit grumpy on that particular day and didn't serve well or whatever, then you're protected. And I think that's the thing, is that people are seeing now, well, people are missing really that opportunity of getting started and putting it in place. Because if you do it now and your competitor doesn't, then you're ahead of the game. And I don't know, did you see, John, about the Moz report? It's like, do people consider that ratings are a ranking factor or reviews are a ranking factor? And it's like, yes, they are considered to be one of the ranking factors. But nobody's really evidenced and proven. But hold on a second, if Google's about delivering relevant results, then these become recommendations. And because there's a little filter now to filter by 3 stars and above, or 4 stars and above, or 5 stars and above in search.
Right.
And it's just like, the stuff's going to change. Google keeps on evolving. So I think you're right. I think the opportunity to get started is now. And don't leave it, everybody. Reviews, it's going to happen. Google is really, really pushing to build this ecosystem.
Yeah, and just circling back to the Moz report, I mean, this is one of the things, like you and I have talked about, doing that canonical research that would show this. We have the data to show it and all of that. If we could just run it over time and the reason I don't think there's a huge need for that is just that everyone seems to know that it's the case, right? We don't know the exact mechanics and exactly how Google weights one factor over another, but we know that everyone who pays attention to their local search results will kind of figure out that reviews are a ranking factor, and beyond Google, right? So when you start to look at when you have that audience on a site like Zillow, which I talked about earlier, a highly qualified audience, right? Reviews are going to be a factor influencing which 3 real estate agent listings get shown in the sidebar to all of those prospective buyers and sellers who are using that site. And so it's just a kind of a phenomenon that goes beyond search, per se, or Google per se.
Yeah. And it's a mentality about reviews. That's great. Where can everybody find you, John? And then I'm going to let everyone know I've got a video on the site as well. So where can they get in touch with you?
So we're at grade.us. That's grade.us, as in to give a grade. And that's the best place to kind of look at what we do. And I'm at john@grade.us. That's JON.
There we go. And we at Plus Your Business have partnered with John, and we've got some free training materials on the site. You need to sign in and then look for the stars. And I put a new video together which gives you a load of process and a load of tips on how you can get more reviews and make customer service part of the fabric of your business. Thanks so much, John. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, Martin.
That was the Google for Business podcast. I'm Martin Sherrington, and I hope you're listening next time.